Hey everyone, happy Monday. My name is Angela Marie Williams. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and a personal success coach. I'm excited to talk to you today about this really important topic. So, at the time of this recording, it is December 20th, 2021, and we are rounding out the end of the year. And I've been in so many conversations with my clients and potential clients and individuals that are looking to wrap up this year in an intentional way and look forward to the next year that's coming toward us, right? That's coming real quick around the corner. So, I want to talk to you today about what you can do to wrap up the year, to celebrate, and why it's so important. So, I had a conversation. I was recording a podcast with two wonderful women yesterday, and they also identify as high achievers. So, if you are a high achiever, you identify as such, raise your hand, put a comment, say hey, let me know if you're watching live or on the replay. Let me know if you identify as a high achiever. And so they were saying, it's really difficult to celebrate the wins when you're a high achiever because you're always looking forward. You're always looking at the next goal. You're kind of always looking at that gap between here and where you're trying to go, right? So that's exciting. I love goals. I love goal setting. One of my strengths, so if you ever take a strengths assessment, I encourage you to do the Clifton Strengths. It used to be called Strengths Quest, I believe it was. One of mine is futuristic, so I love looking at the future. I love looking ahead, right? So I totally get where you're coming from. But when we're always looking ahead and we're not being in the present moment or acknowledging what we've accomplished, we're kind of looking at the gap of what's lacking or what we haven't done. And although it's exciting to look at the future, it still kind of sends us a message that we haven't been achieving everything we want, or our timeline's off maybe, right? Or we're not getting to where we want to go fast enough, right? How many times have you had that thought, I'm not where I want to be, I thought it would be further along by now, right? A lot of times we underestimate the time it takes to do something, and so we always are kind of looking at that gap, what's not there. So what I want to encourage you to do is I want to encourage you to look at the past, the gap from where you've come to where you are now. That is going to be so important for a few different reasons, and especially for high achievers. Because high achievers were so overly focused on the futures and the goals, we don't give ourselves that acknowledgement and that encouragement and that praise that we need to say, hey, you did a good job, right? When we acknowledge where we've come from, what we've been able to do, what we've been able to accomplish, that increases our confidence. That increases our confidence, right? We can kind of review those lessons learned and look forward and apply those forward. But we can't really do that without that solid reflection, right? We need some reflection to see, okay, what did we try? What did we learn? How did we grow, right? Those are all very, very priceless and important lessons that we need to capture and use as we move forward in our journey. So it's helpful for that. It's also helpful to show confidence, right? Like, oh, I actually did that 3 times versus, oh, I haven't really done that, right? Even if it wasn't successful, right? It was because we were able to learn a lesson from that. So I remember I had set a goal of myself of wanting to be on a podcast this year. And, I was kind of thinking about it, looking through some goals. And I was like, oh, I haven't really done a lot of podcasts. Actually, now that I look back and take a moment to reflect and see where I've come from 0 to now I think I just finished up my 4th podcast interview yesterday, right? So it's like, oh, actually you have done that. And the more I do it, the more I realize, actually I'm getting better at it. I'm getting more confident with it. And I have to remember these things, right? Because if I'm so forward focused, I'm not remembering those important lessons and the confidence and confidence builders, right? So I want you to go ahead and do that. And again, when we're high achievers, we can be really hard on ourselves, and it can be difficult to acknowledge and appreciate, right? We also have to practice that gratitude for the opportunities, gratitude for ourselves, taking those brave chances, right? Or learning the lesson. That can keep us in a positive emotional and mental place that we need to continue to do what we need to do going forward, right? So that's another opportunity to practice that gratitude. It's another opportunity to actually do a review of things that you can market yourself for. So if you think about your past year, whether you have your own business or whether you are an employee kind of working a 9 to 5, looking back at what you've been able to accomplish this year is really important for benchmarking. It's important for, if you're trying to advocate for yourself for more money, if you're trying to charge more, with clients, or if you're trying to ask for a raise, going back and reviewing all of the things that you've done and being able to quantify that and define that and show where you've brought value, that's a huge asset for you and a huge negotiating point, right? For you to be able to say, hey, here's the evidence that I'm doing a great job, right? And again, we tend to overlook these things or just think, oh yeah, of course I would do that, right? Like that's the normal part of my job. But we're the ones who know what all of the things we do, right? Our bosses don't really know, our clients don't really know all of that, right? All the stuff that we've invested in ourselves, all of the value we can bring to them. So that's where we have to highlight that. There's actually a woman in one of my groups, Meredith Feynman, I believe is her name. She wrote a book called Brag Better. And she's like, we're the ones, right? We're the ones we need to advocate for ourselves. And we need to be able to do that in a way that shows the value, and it could be done in so many different ways. So if you're also worried about, I don't want to be boastful or I don't want to be cocky or things like that, she addresses all that in her books. I recommend you go out and grab it. But, it's okay. It's okay to give ourselves that pat on the back. It's necessary, right? Because again, not everyone knows what you're doing. You do, but not everyone else does. And I think oftentimes, we get in these kind of cycles where we're like, oh, I'm not appreciated. I'm not, recognized. And it's like, okay, well, do you clearly communicate everything that you've done? Right? Because everyone else, that may not be a priority for them, right? You also need to have that sense for yourself, that confidence and that support. And that plays into that loving relationship with yourself too, right? When you can pat yourself on the back and say, hey, good job. When you can recognize that, that really increases that relationship with yourself, which can increase, right, your happiness, your joy, and your ability to continue to give and grow. All right, so really short and sweet today. I just want to encourage you to, as an action item, walk away from this and take some time, really carve out a good 20-30 minutes at least. And I want you to look back in your calendar. I want you to kind of think back on each month, each week, each milestone, and write down all of the things you've done this year. Maybe you graduated from a program. Maybe you invested yourself in a major way, emotionally or mentally, in coaching or therapy. Maybe you started a business. Maybe you started a book. Maybe you got started or thought about starting, right, one of those things on your vision board, on one of those things that will bring you that joy and success that lights you up, right? Maybe you started a foundation or a nonprofit. Maybe you, hit a reading goal. Maybe you contributed in a way that you could never contribute before to your community or organizations. So there's a lot of things to be excited about. And, I also say, don't quantify the size of the achievement, right? We need to celebrate our wins, big and small. Even if they're small, right? They're still as important. They're still necessary. Even if you think maybe this doesn't matter, write it all down. I want you to write it all down. I want you to take a look. I think you'll be shocked and surprised about what you've been able to accomplish in a year. And I want you to keep that and continue to refer to that, right? As we move forward into our vision, this can also kind of help us to shape our next steps, right? So as we look back at the past and we look back at all the things we've been able to do, then we can look at that and maybe we increase it 1% for the next year, right? Or maybe that's a comfortable pace for us, or maybe we can increase it. Or maybe we did too much and we need to decrease it, right? And focus more on self-care or dedicating time to ourselves, right? So that's a really important measure as well that we can take as we're creating our vision for 2022 and beyond, is to look at what are those successes? What are the things I can accomplish? Maybe I've got some foundations laid down and I can increase the way that I'm stepping out on those foundations, right? So it's a really helpful exercise. I want you to do that. I think it'll bring you joy. I think it'll bring you knowledge and information to be able to help you move forward into the next year. And if you haven't already heard, we completed a Vision 2022 and Beyond workshop recently. If you want the replay, contact me, give me a message, or comment below. Those will be available for a limited time, so let me know. And also, as you're kind of thinking through these things, you're looking at your past year, and maybe you're like, wow, like I've still got so much I want to do, Or, I really didn't get to a lot last year, right? Maybe self-care or surviving was the priority, right? Like, think about where we are and what we're doing right now, right? And what's going on in the world. But if that was the priority, that's okay. Knowing it's all right, tell yourself that. But if you're needing that guidance, if you've created a vision, a preliminary plan, and you really are like, how am I going to be able to move this forward? And you need some of that support to help you clearly define your goals, make them into bite-sized chunks, and really apply those on a daily basis. That's where you could find the support, right, of a coach such as myself. I'm also taking clients for the new year, but I will encourage you to hop on a strategy call either way with me for free 20-minute strategy calls. And what we'll do there is we'll get very clear about that larger vision that you have, and create that roadmap. What are the steps you're going to need to implement to get from here to there? And then maybe what are some of those roadblocks? What are those things that are holding you back? And we try to figure out, hey, is coaching the right support for you right now? What might be the right support for you? Maybe it's a therapist. Maybe it's a mentor. Maybe it's joining a networking group. Maybe it's, there's a lot of different things you can do. Maybe it's hiring a person to help you in your home, right? So there's a lot of support that you can employ. When you hop on this free strategy session with me, we will work through all of that. No pressure, it's just really figuring out what's the right fit for you. So I'll leave the link. I invite you to come chat with me and see if coaching is right for you, or just what support would be right for you in your life right now, right, in general. So what we'll do, we'll get clear in your vision, we'll get a roadmap towards your goals, and then we will figure out the roadblocks and then figure out what the next steps. All right, so I'll leave the link. Make sure to sign up. Make sure to say hi, leave me a comment. It's so good to see you all. I see some folks joining here, so thanks for hanging out with me today, and I hope you have a wonderful week, and I'll talk to you soon.